Hello there. My name is Jasom Jensai, and welcome to this live stream where we're going to be discussing um, Mando Chapter 15, should Mace Windu return, and Mando Chapter 16, or Season 3, or just in general, and how powerful is Grogu? Is he just a baby, or is he a baby Yoda? Um, so before we get to all that, first let's discuss um, the question of the stream: who hired Jango Fett to be the Clone Army template? So this is, again, it's a question of the stream. You get 10 points if you get it right. You only get one guess. You can't look it up. And only the first person to get it right gets the 10 points. So if you know this one, leave that in the live stream chat. Or if you're watching the rebroadcast and someone hasn't already gotten it, leave it in the comments. And feel free to go back to my other live streams because, to my knowledge, no one has gotten those yet. So you could get, like, when did I start this? Chapter 5. So it'd be, like, 110 points already. That's, of course, if you know them. Some of them are pretty hard. Like, what is Thrawn's Star Destroyer for most of his career? What is that called? That's a pretty difficult one. But yeah, other than that, this one should be pretty easy. Same with the last one. But let's get into Mando Chapter 15. So this is the episode where it's the newest one at the time of this stream, where they get Mayfeld out of. It's not really a prison. It's like he's in like a work camp. He's basically doing just labor because he was a criminal. Then they take him out and he basically says, okay, we should go to try and find Moff Gideon, who has the child. And they go over to this planet and they break in and use the little computer thing, find Moff Gideon, and then get out. It was a pretty cool episode. I really liked it. Not much of like character significance happened. So there's like three parts of the story. There's the setting, there's the plot, and then there's the characters. And you could say the setting is the characters, kind of, but they're kind of different. In this one, obviously not much happened for the setting. It showed us a new planet in Star Wars. Showed us a bit more of the side of the Empire, which I always like to see. So it showed us a little bit of the setting, but mostly this was just a plot episode. There wasn't much with characters. There was that thing with the mask, and I'll talk about that a bit later. And Mayfeld was just being Mayfeld. Yeah. But most of this was just, how does Mando figure out where Moff Gideon's fleet is? And possibly, if it comes back, part of the plot could be, how does Mayfeld escape the New Republic and then later come back and either help Mando or hurt Mando? Which would be, I kind of want to see him come back. He's pretty cool. What else is there? Let's just start with a bunch of cool details I liked. Boba Fett's armor. Last episode, and all the episodes before that, it was super beat up. But now it's kind of smoother. It's got a more clean paint job. So clearly he just, like, repainted it, maybe somehow smoothed it out. That's pretty cool. Seismic charges. Those were awesome to see. It was a bit insane how he managed to make it blow up right at the right time and stuff. I don't know how much skill in that and how much luck is in that. But I guess he's Boba Fett, so that's probably like one of his specialties. So seismic charges were just awesome to see, regardless of how crazy it is that he managed to hit them. Yeah, what else happened? That's all the Boba Fett stuff, I think. He wasn't really in this episode too much. I do like when he said, I don't remember what he said. He said something, and it was just like, that sounds so good. I love that they got Tamora Morrison to play him. But anyways, for Mayfeld moments, there was just a lot. He was constantly talking. I think that's the thing with Mayfeld's humor and his character, is he's constantly talking. It's kind of insulting, but I mean that's kind of funny also. And if you can't take a good insult, what are you doing? Anyways, um, Cara Dune, again, about as much as Boba Fett. This episode wasn't too heavy on the character development, except for Mando. And Mayfeld brought up the point that everyone's the same. They all have lines they don't cross until stuff gets hard. And that's pretty true, and it's proven to be true in this episode with Mando. When he not only takes off he wears a different helmet, he doesn't just wear his Mando helmet, which I guess you could say is perfectly fair. After all, he like has to take off his helmet to eat, and the whole thing is like if your helmet is like damaged and you get a new one, I'm sure that's fine. But it is a bit weird that he's wearing an Imperial helmet, and Mayfeld points this out. And then later in the episode, he actually takes his helmet off, and a whole bunch of people see him. It's not like he took it off to eat. Yeah, so there's that. And I think the reason this happened is because of Bo-Katan and the other Mandalorians who just showed him that there was other versions of being a Mandalorian than the strict rules of like never break your word, never take off your helmet. Yeah. So it was cool to see. I don't know if I feel like this was the episode to do it because Mayfeld was there, and he's kind of the person to point out that everyone has boundaries until they don't. But I don't know if it was super necessary considering Mayfeld. Sorry about the dog, by the way, if you hear that. I don't think it was super, like, well done. Like, Mayfeld could have walked up to that, and it would have had the same effect on the plot. He ended up walking up anyways. Yeah, and then the other thing is, how are they going to access it with someone else's code cylinder if it scans their face? Surely you would be able to match, like, the facial recognition to the code cylinder. That's a bit strange. But anyways, it's fine, I guess. It's an interesting scene because he takes off his helmet, but it's brought down by the fact that it doesn't really make sense that he had to take off his helmet then. Yeah, but then everyone else dies, and Mayfeld's the only one who knows. Yeah, I'm excited to see how Mando grows, at least with that rule. I mean, I don't want to see him like. I want to see him be like a strict follow the rules Mandalorian, but not one that's like, oh, I am never gonna take off my helmet because this is the way. You should do it because it's the right thing to do, not because of some tradition. Oh, and then also Mayfeld talking about how he couldn't see out of the helmet, and how he doesn't understand how Mandalorians always do that. I can imagine with all the enhancements your helmet gives you, like the infrared stuff and all that. Like we see through Mando's helmet sometimes, and it's a bit hard to see unless you're used to it. If you're used to it, it's probably like, oh, this is super helpful. I can't imagine living without this. So that's, and then the other thing is, obviously Stormtrooper helmets aren't as good as Mando helmets. Well, some of them. Obviously, there's gonna be some Stormtrooper helmets that, well, would there even be any? Yeah, I suppose if there's a broken Mando helmet, a Stormtrooper helmet would be better. I do like. Okay, so Mando's fight scene with all those, and sorry, I'm a bit rambly today. Yeah, but anyways, that fight scene against all those like pirates with Mando, in the Imperial armor, that was really good. He ran out of ammo kind of quick, but it was kind of cool to see him like beating people up the same way he did with his Mando outfit, except when he got hit, it actually broke and there was no blasters. Yeah, like Stormtrooper armor is not the best, especially compared with Beskar. And he didn't have like his flamethrower, his grapple line. He didn't have his vibroblade. he didn't have as quick of a blaster. It was a heavier, more clunky, less civilized blaster. Um, he didn't have his pulse rifle, of course, or his jetpack. Um, yeah, he didn't have knee rockets, which are so cool. Um, but anyways, chapter 15, my favorite part of it was the very end when he says, "You have something I want." And he basically goes through the whole speech that Moff Gideon gave him, except now he's giving Moff Gideon that speech. That was super cool, super interesting. I very much enjoyed that, especially my first time. My second time, not quite as much. I don't know. I do think Moff Gideon sounded better saying it. Like, "You have something I want," versus "You have something I want." It's the lines were clearly designed for Moff Gideon, but it's cool to see Mando just shove those back in his face, even if that is like warning Moff Gideon of the impending attack. Oh well, it's a cool scene. What else happens in this episode? Oh, Mayfeld blowing up the base with that awesome sniper shot. That was cool because I mean he's an Imperial sharpshooter. Obviously that's going to be his specialty is shooting like precise from far away, and that's what he did. Kaboom! That was cool. Oh, the other thing when the TIE fighters, sorry I'm so rambly. It's like I'm jumping all over. But when they're driving in with the Rhydonium, like the pirates are about to catch them, and then the TIE fighters swoop in, and then Mayfeld cheers. That I liked seeing that. Because Mayfeld is Imperial, right? So obviously he sees TIE fighters saving the day, he's gonna cheer. Whereas Mando just looks up and is like, "Oh, okay, I got saved by TIE fighters, I guess." And then the stormtroopers come out, and Mayfeld's like, "Never thought you'd be so happy to see stormtroopers." And yeah, great lines from Mayfeld throughout the episode. Oh, and then they let him go, which I thought was a cool scene as well. Well acted. Cara Dune, or whoever her actor is, in season 1 wasn't quite as good. Like some of her lines just seemed like she was saying it, and trying to act like she was trying to act rather than seeming to just say it naturally. But this season she's gone like super into the character or something. Like I don't think she said a single line that didn't come out naturally. Maybe that one too, like the little like in the very beginning of chapter 12, not the very beginning, when you first see her and she's like beating up those Aqualish thugs. And she saves this like little rodent thing that in the concept art can breathe fire, which I don't know, could be interesting. But she like saves this little rodent and she's talking to that. I don't remember for sure, but I think that one came off. It's like the same problem. I don't know. And other characters have this problem too. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but it just seems like they're just saying their line or like they're acting rather than they're just naturally speaking. But that's all I gotta say for Mando Chapter 15, except that I'm super excited for Chapter 16. Should I speculate about Chapter 16? I'll give like a little brief prediction. And this is pretty much a guess, just based on where they are in the story. I think. Oh, what could happen? Mando will. He's obviously going to try and capture Moff Gideon. I think he's going to fail, but escape. Boba Fett is. Maybe Boba Fett betrays him. I don't know. They could do that. That'd be cool, I think. If Boba Fett betrays him. The other option would be he gets captured, but then like a Jedi comes and saves him. I don't know. They could do a lot of things, but there's just no way Mando wins with just him, Boba Fett, what's her name, Fennec Shand, and maybe Cara Dune and Greef Karga. So let's move on to the next segment, which is should Mace Windu return in The Mandalorian? And this goes into what I said just like a second ago. A Jedi could come and save Mando at the end of this episode. Should it be Mace Windu? Should, like, we just see a Jedi come to Tython and it pops out and it's Mace Windu? So let's look at the obvious thing. He died in Revenge of the Sith. However, there has been speculation for like ever on this, but there's been speculation that Mace Windu survived. After all, he did only get knocked out a window, and people have survived that. Well, I suppose he was also shot by lightning, but people have survived that too. And he got his hand chopped off, but people have survived that too. However, the thing with that is no one has survived all three at once. Granted, no one has died from that other than Mace Windu, and the question is whether he survived or not. So it's technically possible he survived. And then there's another thing to consider. Darth Maul survived getting cut in half. So should Mace Windu be able to survive getting a hand chopped off, shot by Darth Sidious's unlimited power, and then knocked out a window? Personally, I don't think so. But first, let's talk about whether he should be the Jedi that trains Grogu. So at this point, you know what, actually, I think he would do a good job as Grogu's master. He knew Yoda pretty well. That's a huge thing. Well, the other thing is he understands the temptation of the dark side and how bad it is for you. I wish I could say that more specifically. Bad is kind of a generic negative word, but it blinds you. The dark side, like the dark side you would expect, it blinds you through your emotions, and he understands that, and he understands that it's not the right path, and he would be able to train Grogu to basically, despite his attachments, act rationally, basically. So he'd be a good master for Windu. It would be cool to see him because he obviously had such a close relationship with Yoda. And of course, Mace Windu is just pretty cool. And it would be pretty cool to see him interacting with Mandalorian, especially one as strict as Mando or Din Djarin. So it would be cool to see him and Mando, but I don't think it's the benefits of him showing up are better than like the cost of him surviving. So Maul survived, right? But the reason Maul survived is because actually let's go with this. The reason people accept that Maul survived is because he had such like excellent character arcs after his death. So in the Clone Wars and in Rebels, he's super awesome and everybody loves it. But if it wasn't as good, people would like literally hate it. It's either like super good and people are like, wow, this character is awesome, or it's just okay and people are like, he should never have been brought back from the dead. It's so ridiculous. For example, Palpatine gets brought back from the dead and everyone's like, this is ridiculous. I mean, I'm sure there are some people who like that Palpatine returned and just loved him, and I did like seeing him. Just seeing Ian McDiarmid play him is just great, but he should not have been brought back, in my opinion. It was definitely a mistake. But another thing is Darth Maul, his death in the Phantom Menace served the purpose of Obi-Wan Kenobi not dying. Like, that's about it. He, like, so many people did not like that he died. It's kind of like Boba Fett dying, which they brought him back too. Like, his death, he's a super awesome character, but he just gets killed super easily by like some guy who shouldn't even be able to match up to him. Like, Boba gets killed by a blind guy. Maul gets killed by an apprentice. After he killed his master. Then of course there's Windu, who died to Darth Sidious. He died to like a surprise slice from Anakin, I mean, they did kind of have super giant wind ups, both of them. But I'll kind of forgive that. It looks pretty cool. Um, but he died to Anakin and then to Sidious. That it it makes sense that he would have lost in that case. The other thing is his death served the story, where Darth Maul's didn't really serve the story other than Obi-Wan survives. So Darth Maul could have like had to retreat or been called away to do something else. Maybe like Newt Gunray gets captured and Darth Maul is sent to stop them. Um, but then on the way, Sidious is like calls him and is like, "No, just leave it." Um, that could be cool. I don't know. There are ways you could have had Obi-Wan survive. Maybe Obi-Wan just runs away. But then I guess you don't get the Qui-Gon funeral scene. Um, yeah, there are ways to have Obi-Wan survive. However, there Mace Windu's death serves the story in a very significant way. He is the Jedi that is worst to Anakin. Because of his super strict like adherence to the light side, somewhat at the cost of the light side to some extent, with how he wanted the assassination of Dooku. Although I do understand that the motive for that was killing this one man this way would prevent the deaths of like millions more people. Hang All right, thanks for waiting. Anyways, where was I? Mace Windu should not have died, or should have. I lost my train of thought. Where was I? So, Mace Windu, his death was significant because it marked a turn in Anakin. It allowed Anakin to turn to the dark side. If Windu, who was the like rudest Jedi to Anakin, he was so strict, and Anakin, of course, didn't like that. Which some say Anakin was right, but personally, I think you gotta strike a balance of strictness and compassion. Um, so Mace Windu, of course, was and probably Anakin's least favorite Jedi. Um, so it's so poetic that Mace Windu says that Palpatine is too dangerous to be kept alive, goes to kill him, and Anakin, he sees his like worst. It's basically like if you're on like a football team or something and you've got like all your teammates, but then one of your teammates is like the bully. You're almost tempted to just take them out, like even though they're on your team. I don't know. Maybe that's a bad analogy. I personally haven't been in any situation like that. But I don't know. It's just very poetic for Mace Windu to be the one to tempt Anakin to the dark side through Palpatine. So, I don't think Mace Windu should survive because his death plays such a significant role in Anakin's fall to the dark side. But I guess some people think so. If you're one of those people, leave your thoughts. Leave why Mace Windu coming back is perfectly justified, and not just why he could potentially survive. After all, Maul survived, and I accept that. But why he should survive. But with that said, let's move on to the next segment, which is how powerful is Grogu? And obviously, this one is he isn't as powerful as okay. So this is a very interesting question because Grogu is a baby, but he's 50 years old and he's been trained and he's a Yoda species, so people assume he's very powerful because of that. So is he just a baby or is he like a Yoda? Like he's a baby Yoda, so that makes him powerful. And so that's like the two opposing viewpoints I have on the screen and on the thumbnail. So let's get into it. So, Baby Yoda or Grogu doesn't use the Force very often. Um, he uses it once in episode 2, not in 3, 4, 5. Does he uses it in 7 and 8 as well. So there's 3 in season 1. And then he uses it in he doesn't use it in 4, right? Or no, 4, yeah, he doesn't use it in 4. Oh no, he does. He force pulls the snacks. So he force pulls the snacks, then force pulls after that he talks to Ahsoka and he force pulls the bowl twice. And then he's throwing on stormtroopers. So he's used the Force 7 times across 15 episodes. Granted, we didn't see him in episode 15, so it's effectively 14 episodes. So, yeah. He doesn't use the Force very often, and when he does, it's usually... Oh, no, he also choked Cara Dune. Forgot about that one. So that's 8 times in 14 episodes. So he doesn't use the Force very often. And when he does, it's usually... Okay, so recently he's been doing smaller things and more selfish things like pulling the ball or pulling like those little snacks, like the blue things. But at first, especially, it was just big things to save people, like picking up the Mudhorn, then healing Greef Karga or stopping the flamethrower. So it's mostly just been big things, but it makes him oh so tired, as Moff Gideon says. Which makes sense. I mean, you see Yoda tired after he like lifts the pillar. You see like Luke seemed to be a bit out of breath after he lifts the X-Wing. So, like, I think the reason it's different for him is because he's got like the physicality of a baby, or really a toddler. So even though he can lift large amounts, it makes him very tired. Because I mean, he's got a connection to the Force. It's like, yeah, but he doesn't have the endurance of a grown being. So he gets tired super quickly. And I think that just makes sense. Another thing is he hasn't used the Force in so long. So, of course, has he? Yeah, because Ahsoka says he hasn't. He, like, stopped using the Force to hide his powers. He hasn't used the Force in so long. Yeah. So, like, he's just tired from it. It's the same if you, like, stop running for, like, years and then run again. You're gonna be tired. You're not gonna be as strong, granted. So maybe he was stronger when he was, trained. Which the other thing is, before, chapter 13, I would have thought, oh, he's way too powerful. Like, just because he's a Yoda doesn't mean he's powerful. Yoda should be powerful because he's got 800 years of experience. I mean, he does have 50 years, but he's like got the maturity of a baby. You can't teach a baby like how to really do anything without, like, even if they had all the time in the world, like they were a baby forever, you couldn't teach them to do much. So how is he able to achieve such great feats? But I think it makes sense that he's able to do some things, not very skillful things, but like a force pull or just a force lift, powerful things, but not very precise things. And the other interesting thing, and that, of course, that's with training. And the other thing is he, like, he's using a few powers that, like, we've never seen before, such as force healing, was introduced in The Mandalorian, and then everyone threw a fit about it in Rise of Skywalker, when really it was started in Mandalorian, which I don't like force healing in The Rise of Skywalker, but I will admit I don't like it in Mandalorian either. And they did foreshadow it all the way back in Chapter 2, but still, I just don't think it fits with the other powers. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on force healing, but The other thing that he does is stopping the fire. Like, we've never seen that before. We've seen like Yoda stopping force lightning, um, but we haven't seen anyone stop fire, which I think that's a great addition. It makes perfect sense. Obviously, if you can stop things like lightning, if you can like make yourself stronger and faster and use the force, it's all just energy. Surely you'd be able to manipulate the energy of fire and just push it back, right? It just makes sense. Whereas force healing, it's like you're speeding up a biological process. I mean, I guess you could say that's what force augmentation is. You're just speeding up your muscles, but that's different. That's giving more energy to your muscles. You don't give more energy to your arm and suddenly it heals. That's not how force works. And I don't mean that like mystical force. I mean literally force, um, which is essentially one aspect of the force. And it doesn't make sense with the other ones like force visions or force sense, which you're not like gonna feel your arm and it's gonna heal. Like it that's not how it works. So I don't know. Leave your explanations about, well, first you have to establish how you think the force works. I made a really old video about it. I kind of disagree with that video by now. Um, like for example, instead of calling it like the like connecting force or the energy force or whatever I called it, I would call it the cosmic force and the living force. The living force being like an energy field and the cosmic force connecting all living things. Um, so go watch that video. Check it out. You'll probably need to go to my channel to find it. I should have a playlist. It's the one not about balance. It's about like the force explained or whatever. But yeah, I don't think you'll be able to like find it through search. You have to go to my channel probably, unless it's like 10 years from now when I've got a million subscribers or whatever. I don't know. Anyways, so he doesn't have like precise power, but he's got a significant amount of power. He probably has about as much power as I would say like a gifted like young Padawan or like a not very gifted older Padawan. So about the level of like a Padawan. Which makes sense. He's 50, but he's a baby. So and he does have training, although he only has what like 20 years of training. Still like that's about a Padawan age, but he also has experience after that that obviously helps him. And the other thing is he's tapping into his emotions a lot when he uses his powers cuz like he's hiding it otherwise. It's only in like dire situations where he taps into his emotions. Well, some emotions like bravery when he like takes on the fire or compassion when he does force healing. But you could say I suppose it would be compassion when he lifts up the Mudhorn too, because like he doesn't know Mando yet. He's just like, oh, this guy's about to like get destroyed. I better help him. So it's just I don't think he uses the dark side in most cases, but when he chokes Cara Dune, when he force pulls like the snacks and the like little shiny ball, those are selfish uses of the force or passionate. Like when he chokes Cara Dune, that person is fighting my friend. I'll help him. Like it's not fair to the not friend. It's biased, and so therefore it's dark side. That's kind of how I see the dark side and light side. So I think it's interesting what it looks like when someone isn't like so much trained about the Jedi and they're kind of just using the Force how they see fit. But obviously they're like an innocent little child, so they're not gonna just use it completely selflessly or selfishly. But of course they are not human, but they are like not perfect, so they're gonna use it selfishly as well. So yeah, Baby Yoda is, I would say, about the level of a Padawan, which makes sense. He's got about 20 years of training and 30 years of experience after that, but he is still like the maturity of just a child. So that's about all I have for the stream this week. Leave your thoughts about it, about anything I said, about Mando Chapter 15, about the return of Mace Windu, or talk about how powerful is Grogu. I'd love to hear all your thoughts about those in the comments or in the chat if you're watching live. One more thing, make sure to leave your answer to the question of the stream in the comments. You could get 10 points. That's pretty cool. But if you have any questions, compliments, or critiques, leave those in the comments below. May the Force be with you always.